Today I thought I'd show you my studio and my guitars. This is the hallway on the way into the studio, and some of the books and CDs and events I've done are up here on the wall. My wife insisted that I put all this up here because I tend to forget, finish a project, and then I don't look at it. You know, I just move on to the next thing. It's a good reminder for me that even though I haven't done everything I wanted to do, you know, I did do at least a couple things. And there's Mark. I taught him lead guitar chops from about 2003 to 2007 to Troy, the creator of one of the 6 strings. I'm not sure which string he was talking about. Wilson Center Masterclass. Wait. Dragon Slayer. My favorite prayer. The strength to change the things I can, the grace to accept the things I cannot, and a great big bag of money. Let's go inside. So here it is. It's a fairly big room, although it doesn't look that way because it's packed full of shit. I'll start here on the back. This is my collector guitar. This is the 25th anniversary version of Randy Rhoads' guitar. So it was built by the original builders and signed by them. It's number 10. Bought this back when I had some money. Did use it on the Ozzy Siglix book, but you know, it's kind of not something that you really want to play a lot and wear out. I like having it because, of course, it reminds me of where I came from and my original inspirations and so forth. This is Sharknado. And my Tiger. Soft lights for video. I got 3 of them set up, and video cameras. This is the newest edition. It's a 4K camera. I just got it. The audio setup. I use a Mac Pro down there. It's a 2010 series. Here's my amp, so to speak. Axe-Fx 3 is what I've been using exclusively. It's so much easier than micing up the real amp. And Allen & Heath Q16 board. Of course, I'm going to go into the audio portion in a lot more detail in another video. For now, let's just move on to guitars. All right, I'm going to start here. This is the bass I use for everything I record. It's a 5-string Washburn bass. I bought the thing for like 250 bucks used. Picked it up at a music go-around store. I buy a lot of used stuff, really. Does it play well and does it sound good? That's really all that matters. The next one is a Schecter 7-string. Got this one not too long ago, also used. Picked it up for about 400 bucks. It plays well and it sounds good. It's got Seymour Duncan pickups. I don't know what model, but I've always been partial to Seymour Duncan all the way back to the early 80s. Next one over here is a BC Rich Shredzilla. Pointy tips, and if you need to know why that's important.
Round is not scary. Pointy is scary.
This one has DiMarzio pickups in it, and they're kind of a scooped tone, and I'm not a big fan of too much of a scooped tone. I actually like, at least coming out of the guitar, I like to have a strong mid-range because that creates the punch that I like and the clarity. But still, it's kind of nice to have a variety of guitars that have somewhat different tones. So this one has a bit of a scoop tone. The mids are a bit backed off. Might be useful in some situations, probably more for rhythm than lead, even though the thing is called a Shredzilla. That's the model of it. But in any case, it's a nice looking guitar. And of course, if I wanted to get the mid-range out of it, I could always just, you know, drop an EQ, you know, before the preamp and change the tone however I want it. The next one is my PRS McCarty right here. This is the best kind of guitar because it's the free kind. They gave it to me when I was recording the Fret 12 Sound and Story DVD, and this is the guitar that was pictured on the cover. Over time, of course, things do wear out, and I tend not to take great care of them. You know, things get loose, and I usually do the fast fix. So here, for example, the nut had worn down on these lower strings, and it was starting to buzz and fret out down here. So to raise it, I just stuck a piece of paper in behind, you know, just to pull those strings up a little bit. Just a short-term fix. It's been there for like that for probably about a year, maybe 2. Next is my St. Blues, and I did a video on this one, but if you haven't seen it, this is the guitar I use to record the metal lead guitar solos. And after that, I actually did scallop it, as you can see, all the way down and up, everything scalloped. It's a good playing guitar. I really do like it. This is my pet dragon, and here's my broken clock. Over here is my Jackson Soloist. This is the guitar I used to record Speed Mechanics. Again, I did a video about this guitar specifically. One thing that I didn't mention, the story of the Sustainiac really goes back to early 80s, 1982, 83. I was, you know, a young kid, and I was teaching at a music store, and this guy named Alan Hoover came in to take some lessons and started teaching him, and we became friends. And it turns out he was an engineer working at RCA. That was around the time he was inventing the first version of the Sustainiac. And the first version used this thing right here to attach the Sustainiac transducer to it. So this is glued on, and this is a big magnet, and then the transducer would pop right onto there. And then from that transducer, there'd be a cord running to a floor unit. Now the floor unit would power the transducer. It would also tap the signal off of, you know, the electric guitar. The jack would go into the floor unit and then pass it on to the amp, but also tap that signal, power it, and send it to the headstock, and then it would power that transducer, causing the headstock to vibrate with the same pitch, and that's what created the first sustainer. Well, I went and demonstrated those sustainers for them at NAMM shows and so forth, and I know another big fan of that, it was actually George Lynch. He was using those in the late 80s. Then in 1991, Alan had come up with an in-guitar version as a pickup, sort of a pickup in reverse, really. And that's the more modern version right there. So he actually drove up to Wisconsin, where I was living at the time, and brought his router with him, and we routed in here. There's where the circuitry went in, and he routed that out and put the whole system in. And since about 91 or 92 then, this has had this nice sustainer in it. Now this guitar here is a Schecter that I got recently, and I really like this guitar a lot, actually. It's quickly becoming one of my favorites. First of all, it's got this flat black color. They call it satin black, which is pretty awesome because it's kind of shiny, and yet it's also flat black at the same time, so it's pretty cool. And as you can see, it's got a Sustainiac, which is awesome. I love the Sustainiacs, and this is the first guitar I've ever bought with a Sustainiac that came commercially installed. The other thing about this guitar is this pickup here is a Fishman, which I had never played before. Ceramic magnet pickup, but I really like it because it's so quiet as far as noise and hum and buzz from lights and so forth. It tends to reject a lot of that. So nice, clean, easy to play. You can turn your gates down, and you don't have to worry about noise and getting chopped off by gates or whatever. And just a beautiful guitar to play. It's also nice because this neck is wide this way. The strings are slightly further apart than some of my other guitars, even though it's thin from back to front. It's got stainless steel frets, so they're a little more slippery, which I also like as well. And then, of course, it also looks pretty badass. You've got the Roman numerals on the inlays, which I think is pretty cool. This is a cheap Ibanez RG series 7-string. I actually bought it from a friend, the guy who was playing bass for me in Second Soul, Ryan. Now Ryan had been a guitarist who was taking lessons from me way back at the Wisconsin Conservatory of Music, and then some years later we got hooked up again, and then he started playing bass for us in Second Soul for quite a while, actually. It's not a bad playing guitar. I did record the rhythm track of Kaleidoscope actually using this 7-string. I'm not much of a 7-string player, at least I haven't played a lot of 7-string in the past. You know, usually if I want to go low, I'll just down tune on a 6-string, but 7-string's pretty nice. The real problem with this guitar is that it's got a Floyd Rose on it, and I'm too lazy to change the strings. This, of course, is my custom-made Dimis guitar, and the cool thing about this guitar, more than anything else, is the wood it's made of. The neck and headstock is all solid rosewood, Indian rosewood, and the body is half Indian rosewood and half cherry. So it's really the tone that makes this guitar is cool. And the neck is rather thin in both directions. I mean, thin this way as well as this way. And so it's easy to play, it's fast. The other thing is that the pickups were dipped in a special secret sauce made by my former business partner, Gary. Gary Osborne was a business partner with Alan Hoover, actually, in the Sustainiac for a number of years. So I had met Gary through Alan. And then years later, Gary and I ended up starting Music 44, the sheet music store. Had a pretty good run at one point. That company was doing almost $2 million a year. It was kind of short-lived. Really couldn't compete with Amazon long-term, as Amazon's operating at a loss to try to build, you know, their brand, and their economy of scale, of course, eventually just kind of drove us out of business. In any case, Gary had created these pickups, special treatment that would reject RF noise. It quiets them down pretty good. They're actually still noisier than the Fishman pickup over here. Of course, I suppose the best thing in the world would be to dip that Fishman pickup in the same stuff that Gary had developed for this. That would be even better. And last but not least, I have a cheap leftover knockoff Tele. Now, this is a built-in China guitar, cheap guitar, maybe $120 or something. And the reason I have it is because Music 44, we were trying to branch out from sheet music, and we started selling instruments. And this line of instruments built in China was one of them that we started to sell. So I would get these and review them. And this one in particular played really, really well. I really like this guitar. This is the thing about cheap guitars, you know, it's not that they're necessarily bad, it's that the quality of build, though, is rather inconsistent. So you'll pick one up and it'll be really pretty good guitar. You pick up another one and it's kind of messed up. So you really aren't sure what you're going to get. You really, with a cheap guitar, you really have to, you know, try before you buy. The other thing about this guitar, though, is that you get in a cheap guitar is you can't really rely on the materials as much. So that's kind of a problem. And this guitar played great for a few years, but then the neck gradually started to warp on me and bowed backwards. I suppose it probably could be fixed with a little effort, but I haven't bothered. So there it sits. Now let's check out the back room where old gear goes to die. So this was originally intended to be a drum room, but then I ended up stacking it full of stuff, and of course over the time I just get more and more stuff, and as you can see, it's quite the mess. There we have the original Marshalls that I used all the way back into the 1980s. These are the ones I started out with. Those are the amps I used to record metal lead, metal rhythm guitar method, and speed mechanics. Here is Angle half stack. That's a special edition, and when I got an endorsement deal with Angle, I picked that up around the time I was still in Second Soul. Also, I've got that cabinet at the bottom, which you can barely see. It's all covered up. Let's see what I can do here. And you can see I got my logo on it there. That was built by Vader. Great cabinets. I think they're out of business now, but they use truck bed liner to coat this stuff, so they're really tough and they don't rip, which is really cool. That's an oversized 412 cabinet. And then there's my G-Flex 212 ported cabinet. Cords on the wall, and I always keep everything, even boxes. Here's some of the old computer stuff. Everything over here is from computers I had built when I was doing hard disk recording. From some of these were probably 2005. About every 2 to 3 years I'd build a new computer. There's a few more down there. Here's a big pile of pedals and effects. I noticed this one just a little bit ago. Says custom trembucker, 99 bucks. Seymour Duncan. This is a Duncan custom that I bought probably 40 years ago, and I swapped this pickup out. This is a DiMarzio. This was the one that was in the St. Blues guitar when I swapped it out and put the custom in. So that was 40 years ago. It's been sitting in this box ever since. Don't think I'll ever use it, but there it is. Down there is my FM3 fractal audio, which is the portable version of the Axe Effects. And there you have a quick overview of what my studio looks like. I'm going to be going into detail with how I set up the gear to do the audio recording and the video recording, and you know what my preferences are, why I've chose the gear that I have, and what the choices are basically between, you know, how much of the hardware in the box and out of the box, and what the advantages and disadvantages are, and why I've made the choices that I have. So I'm going to be going over all that in another video. Stay tuned. Be sure to subscribe and click the notification bell